Hello and welcome everyone, Lionheart here, and today we've got some Total War news. And I don't normally do these sorts of things, but quite a lot of people have been asking me for a good few weeks, months now, when are we going to have some Warhammer 3 content back on the channel? And I've kept on saying when the new DLC comes out or when we get early access to it, which was obviously Tides of Torment. And CA today, although this video is probably not coming out until the day after this blog post, CA recently released this blog post updating us all on the state of Tides of Torment. Basically, it's been delayed till later this year. We don't know when specifically, but certainly not before probably October. And I'm going to go through the blog post, read through it all, maybe comment on it as we go through it, share my thoughts on what's said at the end, and then I'm also going to talk about what this means for Total War Warhammer 3 content on the channel. When am I next planning to do another campaign? Because I know there's a lot of you guys that want me to do another one or want to know when to expect more, basically. So let's go through this. Hi, folks. Hello. We are delaying, straight to the point, no beating around the bush. We are delaying the release of Total Warhammer 3 Tides of Torment from our previously stated summer release window, and now intends to launch later this year. We will have an exact date for you once we finalize our revised plans, and we'll share details as soon as we're ready. We also want to let you know that our plans to release the final What's Next video in this series will also shift to a future date. I want to talk to you all about why we've made these decisions and what to expect in the months ahead. In recent playtesting, we asked ourselves if this next DLC met the standards that we've set in recent releases, and the short answer is no. However, we know it can, and so we want to spend more time working on it, reviewing the content and improving the gameplay experiences that it's set to bring. So, from that already, they're desperately trying to avoid another Shadows of Change, which is a good thing. Ultimately, and I'll probably reiterate this at the end of the blog post, ultimately, I'm never going to be totally gutted that a developer decides to delay new content or delay a game to make it better because they realize it's not up to standard. The thing, I mentioned this, we're streaming this at the same time as we're covering this news as it comes out, but my biggest frustration is that CA cannot seem to stick to improving and being consistent with their communication with the community. This goes back to Rome 2, or probably even before that, to be honest, but I remember it specifically as a fairly consistent pattern since Rome 2's launch, where CA mess up in some fashion, some form. They promise to do better. They promise to communicate more to try and avoid these issues and keep the community better informed of their decisions and what's going on behind the scenes. They end up doing that for typically about a year or so. Then something happens again. They stop communicating for ages, and then rinse and repeat. And this just has happened for 12 plus years consistently, I would say, which is really frustrating. I don't blame or particularly feel frustrated with the individuals that specifically speak to creators or specifically make these blog posts. I'm more frustrated that obviously this isn't someone that has come and gone in between a position. This is still clearly a top-down issue at CA of poor communication, of whoever gets the final sign off or who actually initiates whatever the communication schedule is. It is really frustrating that it is still this irregular, this inconsistent, and this poor after all these years. So yeah, it is. I'm not so frustrated by the delay. Ultimately, if a delay means better content, I'm all for it. I'd much rather a game and DLC be delayed than it released in a poor state. Like, we don't want another Shadows of Change. Nobody wants more Shadows of Change. We want Thrones of Decay as a baseline standard, basically. I think is a fairly kind of fair assessment to say. But it is just really frustrating that the communication is so inconsistent consistently. Anyway, these changes will likely mean that the content we shared in our What's Next videos for Slanesh and Norska is no longer accurate. It's just, that's even more frustrating then, isn't it? It's like everything they've told us so far, we don't even know we don't even know what shape or change it's coming in anymore. As soon as we know the final shape of these changes, we'll share them with you directly as part of the final What's Next video. to give you a complete picture on our third faction in this DLC and the change to the other factions. I mean, I guess, yeah, it really obviously didn't hit the mark then in their playtesting. If essentially, broadly, what they're trying to say is, hey, so the basic overview we gave for the new features to Slaanesh and Norska and reworks and changes to both factions, it's not even going to necessarily take that shape or form because we realize it just didn't work that well. We know this is disappointing news. 2025 has been a slower year for many of you in our Warhammer communities, and we're not oblivious to that. We're proud of the updates that we've released for the game this year. I mean, that is the one thing I will say. While there's been no DLC, they have been pretty good with fairly consistent regular patching. The recent hotfixes they've been putting out have been widely praised for certainly the multiplayer changes that I've seen. I've not really done much myself, but certainly the multiplayer side of things seems to be well received. So yeah, that is good. But for everyone waiting for new content and bits and pieces, it's pretty poor. We're proud of the updates that we've released for the game so far this year, but we know that what you love most about this game is the option to experience more of it, especially through the new gameplay styles offered by new Legendary Lords, all the new unique units, and the focus we give to reworks and core game improvements. Whilst the game is in a better space than previous years, thanks to the efforts made through 2024, we are currently not meeting our commitments to be more active on these fronts, and we apologize for not being more transparent. I mean, ultimately, yeah, you've got to include that because that's exactly what you haven't been doing. But this ultimately is just very empty words right now because it's the same pattern. This is the same stuff you guys say each time you end up not communicating well. Like, it's not a case of each time you mess up. I don't mind them necessarily messing up. It's just the lack of communication in between the radio silence the moment anything goes wrong, or we don't know that anything's gone wrong until much later on, where they eventually put out a blog post or something similar like this, finally put out some comms and go, hey, we haven't been communicating because things have been going badly. While they have sort of said, yeah, it's being delayed, TIDES of Torment till later this year, they have put out a roadmap again. Remember roadmaps? Remember roadmaps for Warhammer 3? We've kind of got a loose one here. The next few months, we plan on addressing that. So here's what to expect. They're giving us a roadmap. I mean, I feel like this is a bit like we need to give them something because otherwise they're... Yeah. Siege reworks, or rather siege improvements, are coming to Proving Grounds and will enter public testing towards the end of this month. Ahead of its release, we'll share details on what's being changed and what we're testing for, and process on how we'll handle your feedback before integrating changes into the main game. Okay. I mean, the Proving Grounds was a really useful tool the last time they did it. Honestly, feel like they should have been doing these way more often, way more frequently, and talking about them a lot more because it was a fairly positive thing the last time they did one. So that's the plan for the rest of this month, July. August, update 6.3. This actually does kind of pique my interest. It's bringing some overdue quality of life improvements to Tomb Kings and Lizard Men. Tomb Kings, my biggest complaint with them right now is that they have no way to generate enough canopic jars in the mid to late game. It's why I had to abandon my Khalida campaign. Also because I think one of the mods that I was using for it stopped working. But it was incredibly frustrating in that Khalida campaign because I just couldn't get enough armies out because I needed way more canopic jars to increase my army limit. And it just didn't work particularly well in Warhammer 3. So that'll be nice to see what quality of life improvements come to Tomb Kings. They certainly need to improve how you generate canopic jars either throughout the whole game or mid to late game, or they change how you increase your army limits. And Lizard Men. Lizard Men, this is something actually I'm kind of excited for because I have toyed with the idea of doing another Lizard Men campaign for a while now. And I partially have kind of been waiting for them to get some kind of quality of life improvements or some kind of like mini overhaul. So I will be keenly awaiting what is specifically announced for Lizard Men in 6.3 and revisions to generic starting traits. We'll also be revisiting some of the skills used by generic orcs and goblin characters to help refresh those in a more modern standard. All of this will be paired with our usual host of minor gameplay fixes, bug squashing, and a battle balance update for folks playing in multiplayer. August will also see the release of a newly recorded What's Next video. Kind of sounds like they've had to... I feel like almost they want to say, like, we just finished the What's Next video, and now we've had to scrap that because it's not What's Next. But yeah, they'll be doing a new What's Next video in August as well, focusing on the third faction for Tides of Torment, where you'll hear directly from our developers on what to expect, as well as updates on the changes and revisions that we've made to Slaanesh and Norska since publishing our earlier videos and series. I mean, that will be really interesting to kind of get a good insight into the scope and scale of how much they feel it hasn't met the mark in their playtesting. That, I think, will be a very interesting video to discover how big, or I guess how far off the mark they missed it, I guess, based off of what they'd previously announced. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't really followed things too much with what they'd announced for Slaanesh and Norska so far. All the stuff I broadly heard was that it sounded good, what they were saying. So I guess it is, as I said, it's just come down. It just didn't work in actual playtesting. Then in September, we're saving space in September for any necessary hotfixes following August's release of 6.3. Otherwise, our total focus will be on Tides of Torment from here on out. We won't have any major updates planned for release in September, but we'll stay on top of emerging issues as we get to work on the 7.0 update. On the topic of the road ahead, we also want to acknowledge that the growing conversation about what we see the game's future beyond Tides of Torment. We've seen a few folk asking for specific characters that might not fit in any of our current DLC formats, so we are exploring how we might introduce a smaller style of DLC that brings a single Legendary Lord or hero unit alongside a few favoured additions. We're working on how these would fit with our schedules, but we have a good idea for who the first one could be, and she's someone near and dear to your blood. Now, from what Twitch chat have told me and kind of what I've speculated as well, is that Neferata? That sounds like Neferata to me, which would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. But this also is not the first time that they've sort of said they'd try and do smaller styles of DLC. I think, wasn't it meant to be that after... Wasn't Thrones of Decay meant to be the last triple Lord pack? Didn't they previously say something along those lines that they didn't want to do ones that big again? And then Omens was triple Lords again. So I kind of like, I don't really know. I don't get it. I guess maybe they decided that they wanted to do triple Lords for each of the Chaos Gods that they were releasing a faction for, and then move into some smaller stuff. Or it sounded like maybe they wanted to have some of these smaller DLCs earlier, intermingled with the Chaos God 3 packs, and they just haven't been able to do that with resources and what have you. But it does sound like, yeah, after Tides of Torment, hopefully more regular DLC, even if it's in a slightly more smaller package. I mean, they've already since Thrones allowed you to buy each Lord individually. So that is kind of a step in the right direction, but it doesn't change the development time doing a 3-Lord pack to release all at once, initially anyway. Right now, our Total War Warhammer teams are singularly focused on Tides of Torment, so we'll be keeping all our attention where it needs to be, and we'll speak more on the possible topic of smaller DLC later on in the year. Next year, we'll return with one of the biggest Total War Warhammer content packs ever created in the trilogy, alongside some free content. You'll get to see some of this nice and early as part of this year's 25th anniversary showcase. So that's the showcase that's coming early December, which should, they'll show what they're, I guess, working on for Warhammer 3 for next year. And that's also when they should be announcing what the next historical Total War is, and the next fantasy/sci-fi/40k. What? That we haven't all guessed or hoping for anyway. That the rumor mill is spitting out right now. Honestly, can't see it being anything other than that. To ensure that this journey that we take through this next chapter of the series is smoother and that we're more present in our communities, please be on the lookout for our return to live streams on Twitch and YouTube, alongside plenty of 25th anniversary celebration events. We're bringing back community live streams on a regular weekly schedule, so you'll have a one-stop space for us all to get together and be updated on what's happening across Total War. I mean, that is actually the biggest, probably positive bit of news about more consistently communicating that they've made in probably the last 3 or 4 years. Because yeah, they used to be very active on their live streams. Like they used to have a regular weekly like showcase or kind of like show as such with the community team or some of the devs coming on. They used to have a rotation of different content creators. I used to stream on the Total War Twitch channel like every other week or so or something like that. A good few years ago, just to kind of for them to having something kind of regular and consistent on that, and they've completely dropped away from that over the past like 3 or 4 years or so. So it's good to see that coming back, and hopefully that does mean that, because you assume that they're going to be communicating more frequently via their live streams, there's going to be just generally a big uptick in general communication from them to the community, just not only through those streams, but in blog posts and, you know, updates and things like that on their sites as well. We want to apologize again for the disappointment of today's news, but hope that you'll look forward to a brighter road ahead. Oh, this is such a random way of them. Like, seriously. Their comms. The third faction for TIDES Torments is High Elves, led by Sea Lord Aislinn. And yes, we're very excited to show you some more on that soon. Adam Freeman, head of community. And just, it's like the last thing. Oh yeah, by the way, it's High Elves in TIDES of Torment. Oh, it's such a mess sometimes, isn't it? I mean, yay, we finally get it confirmed. We've got High Elves. Genuinely, I'm more excited by High Elves and Norska getting more stuff than I am Slaanesh, but that's been broadly the way all of these God packs have been for me personally. I know I'm not alone in that. I know there's some people that really do like the God packs for the God flavored content that they've been doing for Warhammer 3, but like certainly with Thrones of Decay, Elspeth and Malachi, Empire and Dwarves getting new content were just such a big draw for me. Tides of Torment, High Elves and Norska are 100% going to be the ones that I am going to be most invested in. I have been saying, though, for Tides of Torment, what I would do is nearer the time, once we know a release date for it, I would do a poll on the community tab on YouTube to get you guys to vote whether I'll do Let's Plays on all 3 Lords from the DLC, but I'll do 2 new series, 1 straight recorded, 1 live streamed and recorded at launch, and then whichever one of those finishes first I'll then fill with the 3rd Lord. What I will do is I'll have a poll on the community tab near a release, once everything is like fully locked down, to decide whether we do Slaanesh and High Elves or High Elves and Norska. Currently, my preference would be High Elves and Norska, but we'll wait and see what that what's next video actually details, especially with what's changed, I guess, based off their playtesting from what they've already said is going to happen. So, I mean, that is... well, that is the biggest amount of communication we've had from CA for quite some time, because we haven't had any. They have... I'll give them a little bit of credit. They have, I think, given us probably the biggest insight into what they're working on, not just now and in the next couple of weeks, but also potentially beyond that, or at least started the speculation mill on all that by saying things like the biggest Total Warhammer content pack, which Twitch chat is immediately saying surely that's End Times. I would be inclined to agree. I can't think of a bigger event within the Warhammer fantasy world than End Times that could be the biggest Total Warhammer content pack ever created in the trilogy. I can't think of any other events that would fit that than End Times. Let's just hope you can do your own End Times, because I mean, I don't really know much about the End Times other than the little snippets that you guys have gleaned to me during live streams and comments in my series, but I tend to understand that it wasn't exactly well received. So let's hope maybe they've learned from that, and it's a choose your own adventure how you want to end it. I don't know, maybe we'll have like little prompts or events of you could do it this way, or you could do it the other way. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, there is a fair amount of information in there, which is good. It is just a shame that it seems the only way we can get a decent big communication out of CA is when things go wrong. It'd be nice to just have it regular, consistent. As I said at the start and throughout, I don't ultimately mind them delaying the DLC if it means it's better. And if they've just, ultimately, if they found something and it just doesn't work and it's poor gameplay, obviously I don't really want to play that. I'd much rather them rework it. That's going to take more time. Fair enough. I'm still looking forward to Tides of Torment. Place your bets. We're just looking at what they've outlined for the next few months. They've got something for July. They've got something for August. September, they're essentially saying they're not aiming for September, but they're aiming to leave space in September to work on any hot fixes for 6.3, which is coming out in August. And they're also using September to fully focus on Tides of Torment. I'm going to say mid-October, Tides of Torment. That's where I'm going to place my bet. 17th of October. Boom. Place your bets. Right. To finish this off, in terms of Warhammer 3 content in between now and potentially October or beyond, am I going to do a Warhammer 3 Let's Play? Because I actually can't remember when my last Warhammer 3 Let's Play ended. It was Lockyer Fellheart, Dark Elves, which, that probably ended 2 months ago? It's been a bit of time already. I am going to make a call and have a vote on a new Warhammer 3 Let's Play in August. I'm going to wait until 6.3 comes out, or I get early access to it. I'm going to see what improvements come to the Lizardmen, and if they're some good improvements, then I will probably have a poll, because I've also talked about these other two options as well previously, but we'll have a poll between the other factions, but not including Tomb Kings, so I just don't really have an interest in going back to Tomb Kings just yet. But the other factions that have had quality of life improvements over the last few months, Tzeentch, specifically Chaos Fateweaver, Kislev have been reworked and had some changes there. And then I'll include Lizardmen on that if they've had some substantial ones. And we will have a poll to decide between a new Kislev campaign, a Chaos Fateweaver campaign, or a Lizardmen campaign in Immortal Empires for Warhammer 3. And that will be in August, whenever 6.3 comes out. That might be right at the end of August. Might be the middle of August. Honestly, yeah, kind of balls in CA's court in that regard. Whenever 6.3 comes out. But yeah, there will be more Warhammer 3 content on the channel. It is obviously just going to be a little bit longer than everyone had hoped. Not just because we're waiting even longer now for the Tides of Torment DLC, but I'm gonna wait until there is ideally something a bit fresher to dive into a fresh campaign with. Be it Chaos Fateweaver, Tzeentch, Kislev, or Lizardmen. Specifically, which Legendary Lord? Again, I'll take a look at what changes are made. Lizardmen, though, I have been promising for a while that I would actually revisit Oxyotl, because I never actually managed to finish my Warhammer 2 Oxyotl campaign before Warhammer 3 came out. So he would be a prime candidate, either him or Gorok, who I've never played as. And then I guess if I was going to do Kislev, it probably would be Papa Boris, because I've not played as him. So we shall see. But that is where I'm going to wrap up this ramble. This was just something I decided to cover during the live stream when this information dropped. If you've enjoyed this and would like me to do this more often when CA eventually communicate with us, let me know. Let me know your own thoughts on this. What do you think? But also, tell me everything about Sea Lord Aeslin, because I know nothing about him other than he's a high elf. He sounds pretty cool. But yeah, until the next one, take care, and ciao for now.